Welcome back, everyone. Several years ago, I was walking along a beach in Washington State with a beautiful woman who later became my wife. She grew up coming to this wonderful place and took me to the most amazing tree her family called Tenacity. I recently found this picture I took way back then and decided it would make an excellent motivational poster. Let me show you how I did it in Affinity Photo too. I took this picture myself, but I put it up on flickr.com. There's a link in the description if you want to follow along. The day was actually beautiful with blue skies and a few wispy clouds, except for directly behind the tree, which was a bit overcast. So I started by replacing the sky. I used the wand-shaped flood select tool to make a selection. My tolerance was set to 35% and the contiguous box was unchecked. This over-selected the area I wanted, but did a good job getting the light between the branches. So, to remove the unwanted selection areas, I clicked the selection brush tool and then changed the mode to subtract by clicking the button on the top left toolbar. Then, I could just paint away the unwanted areas that were selected. Alright, that looks like a pretty good selection. So, the next thing I'm going to do is mask off the sky. To do this, I'll go to Selection in the menu and then Invert Pixel Selection. This effectively selects everything but the sky. Now, when I click on the Layer Mask button at the bottom of the Layers panel, the tree and beach remain and the sky disappears. I can now click Command or Control D to deselect everything. To add a new sky, I'll go to File and then Place in the menu. Select an image I downloaded from pixabay.com earlier and I'll drag it out onto my canvas and move it to where it looks good to me. To help with that, I'll drag the layer from the top of the layers stack to the bottom, so the sky is behind Tenacity. Okay, there, that looks good. Alright, now I'm going to work on bringing out some of the colors, shadows and tone of the foreground. To do that, I'll make sure that the foreground layer is selected and then I'll click on the light bulb-shaped Develop Persona in the top left toolbar. You can see that the entire studio changes and a bunch of controls are now easily accessible on the right-hand side. To me, this is an art and not a science. I just play around with each slider until things look good to my eye. In general though, I want to make the shadows a bit darker by increasing the black point and lowering the brightness. And I want to get a brighter and warmer look to the foreground, so I'll up the saturation by about 8 to 10%. I'll max out the vibrance. And then I'll go to the White Balance tab and raise the slider to the right by about 11%. You can see how much better this looks already. I'll click Develop to Bake in these changes. Okay, now a common landscape poster print aspect ratio is 24:18. So, I'll go to the crop tool on the left-hand toolbar and then select the mode drop down to custom ratio. I'll set the units to 24:18. And then, I'll use the nodes in the corner to crop out the two women in the corner here. Now, I'll just move it to where it looks good to me and then click Apply to set the crop. Alright, now I want to enhance the reds and greens here a bit. In person, they really stood out to the eye, but they are underrepresented here. So, I'll go to the Adjustment button in the bottom of the Layers panel and I'll select the HSL Adjustment. I'll then drag the adjustment layer onto the Tenacity layer so it doesn't affect the sky. Then, I'll click on the little red dot and raise the saturation up a bit to bring up the red tones. Likewise, I'll click on the green dot and raise its saturation too. I'll also bring up the brightness in the greens, which makes the leaves look a bit more true to what I remember. Okay, now I'm going to speed through this next part, but I'm essentially just exporting the image of Tenacity as a high-quality JPEG file. Then I'm creating a new document with 30 by 24-inch dimensions. This is one of the sizes offered by one of the popular motivational poster companies. Then, I'll go to File and Place in the menu, and then I'll select the tenacity image I just created. I'll use my cursor to drag that into place. Next, I'll go to Layer and select New Fill Layer. I'll use the color wheel to change that from white to black, and then I'll drag and drop the layer below the tenacity layer. Now, I want to put a little outline just outside of the tenacity image. So, I'll go to my Shapes tool and select the rectangular shape. Then, I'll use my cursor to drag the shape over the image. The fill color is set to black, but I don't want any at all. So, I'll go to the Fill Color box, click on it, and move the opacity slider all the way down. Then, I'll click on the Stroke Color box and set it to a nice orange color. Then, I'll click on the Line Style box and move the line width up a bit to about 7 or 8 points. To get a line color that goes with the reddish brown in the image, you can drag the little eyedropper tool onto the tenacity image to get a sample, then click on the dot by the eyedropper to select the color, and then adjust the brightness of the color by moving the slider in the color wheel. There, that looks good. Now, I'll select the shape and then use the nodes on the selection box to put a little gap between the outline and the image. Okay, next, I'm going to make some room at the bottom for some text. So, I'll use my cursor to drag a box around both the outline and the image, which will select both layers. If I hold Command or Control plus Shift while dragging on a corner node, I can resize the image from the center with the same aspect ratio. Then, I can use the Move tool to place the layers where I want them. Alright, next up is the text. I'll click on the A-shaped artistic text tool in the left-hand toolbar and then select a nice serif font like Times New Roman, and I'll drag my cursor to about the size I want it. Then I'll type in T.E. I'll then highlight the period and then click on the lowercase A-shaped character tool in the top toolbar. This brings up the character panel. Under Position and Transform, there is a little box called Baseline, where you can use the up arrow to raise the character up relative to the others. I'll move the little period up about halfway, and then I'll go to File in the menu and select Copy. Next, I'll click to the right of the E and finish the word Tenacity in all caps. Then, I'll place my cursor between each letter and use the Paste Shortcut Command or Control V to add raised periods between each letter, which I think is a really cool look. Okay, now I'll click on the arrow-shaped Move tool in the left-hand toolbar and use the nodes on the text selection box to resize and center the text a bit. Just a couple more things that I'll speed through here, and then I'll let you go. First, I'll use the Pen tool in the left-hand toolbar to draw a straight line under the text. I'll make sure it's the same orange color and then center it. I'll raise up the line width a bit using the Line Style box. Then, I'll use the Artistic Text tool again to place some smaller white text under the word Tenacity. It's a quote from Abraham Lincoln that says, "Be sure to put your feet in the right place, then stand firm." At first, I thought it would look good with a different type of font, but I changed it back to the same Times New Roman I used for the word tenacity. There, I think that looks good enough to frame and sell on Etsy or someplace else. Feel free to use my copyright-free image. There's a link in the description. If you do, just subscribe or leave me a like. Or, if you're feeling particularly generous, there's a link to buy me a cup of coffee that's also in the description. That's never required, but always appreciated. Have a great day, everyone.